What's up, everybody? It's Spencer Alessi, and this is the Esports Narrative. What is the holy grail of esports content? What platforms should video game and esports influencers be paying attention to? What factors have most contributed to the rise of esports? What do esports media companies and content creators need to do to continue to grow and be successful? Hello. Good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome to episode 41 of the Esports Narrative. I am your host, Spencer Alessi, and this is the podcast that's all about the exploration of competitive video gaming and the passionate communities that make it so exciting. Tonight's guest is Christian Bishop. He's the CEO of GG Media Network. You can find him on Twitter at Mr. C. Bishop, at ggstudios.com and ggmedianetwork.com. And in this episode, we only had Christian for a short amount of time, so this episode's going to be a little bit shorter than my typical episodes, but it's still great content nonetheless. We talk about a lot of different things related to media and esports, and I think you guys will really get a lot of value out of it. The second thing is, I sent a blast out on Twitter earlier, and I appreciate all the feedback and the questions and everything that everyone was talking about, and I respect everybody's right to know everything that's going on. That's not what this episode is all about. This episode is about the exploration of esports, the media, the content, the gamers, the teams, the organizations, the tournaments, the excitement that's going on. And I try to pull out some of those nuggets in this short episode with Christian. I hope you guys love it. I hope you guys get some value from it. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you share it with people who you might think would enjoy it. And we'll definitely have to have him on again sometime to talk about some things more in depth. And I just appreciate you listening. Appreciate you sharing the show and liking the show and being a longtime listener. Or if you're a first-time listener, I appreciate you the same. Super appreciate you listening to the show and your continued support. And with that, let's get into the show. Super excited to have you on, Christian. Thanks so much for coming on. I'm excited to talk to you about esports and really the media side of things, where you see as being opportunities for people who are creating content and stuff like that. So I'm super excited to have you, and thanks for joining me on the podcast tonight.
Sure, Spence. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super big advocate on media, and especially in the esports and gaming field with influencers and talent. Your everyday gamer monetizing their content, I think, is a critical piece of the industry.
So what's your origin story? Like, give us a quick rundown of when and how did you get into video games?
Sure. I've been a lifelong gamer. For me, it never necessarily fit into a specific group or even class group at that, anywhere across the board, and moved around a lot. So gaming for me was my escape. The characters in the game, that fantasy land was kind of what did it for me. Up into like Dragon Ball Z back on Toonami Cartoon Network was my shit. So that was my thing, man. Been a lifelong gamer, professionally. Want to stay close to, got A+ certified, was the guy building your computers. My Christmas list, consisted of computer parts, from A+, from hardware stores and things like that. And for me, I jumped into a career with AT&T, Time Warner, Level 3 Communications on the infrastructure side of things, with bandwidth, telecom, the hardware, supporting media companies, those traditional media companies, and then crafting digital strategies around content with them as well, was my big thing. Continue to progress to producing content and on both sides of the camera, right? So as a producer and as talent, jumped on some TV shows for ABC, did a few TV shows, produced some feature films, commercials, content around all around the space.
So a little tidbit, I did some Googling, right? And I found, so you were a contestant on The Bachelorette, and in your contestant bio, you had three things listed as what are your top three things on your bucket list. One was create a relationship with Mark Cuban and earn his respect. Second one was take a trip to space. and experience the process, take some epic selfies. And the third was spoil your grandchildren. Have you knocked any of those three off the list?
Yeah, actually, I think I'm on the way of earning. That's hilarious. Damn you, bringing up that. Damn you, man. Damn you. I think part of it for me is I've had an opportunity to connect with the Cubans. Met Jeff Cuban at CES this past year and got connected with them, just discussing esports and where we think things are going, and just the conversation around content and some of the things we're doing as a company. So I've engaged a little bit there, which was important for me this past year. Was that, I think it starts with just filling out the relationships, and him and I, we got some social media interaction with Mark Cuban, and some likes and some some interaction. So on the way of I think I've got a bit more work to do to earn his respect, but got some stuff started there, at least some connection.
That's good. And he's an investor in one of the esports betting platforms, Unicorn, right? So he's got some exposure to esports. He's looking at it.
Yeah, I think he's coming. I think he's super bullish about AI and where the things are going. I think they're figuring it out, what they're going to do. I think Mavs are in the NBA 2K league as well. So they're coming in.
So where did your idea for GG Media come about, and why did you want to start something like this, and what was your ambition to do this?
I think for me, I got tired of producing content that wasn't aligned with my passion. I enjoy creating, and storytelling, and really, honestly, enabling creative people. As a producer, I'm on the business end. I like to enable the most creative to create fun stuff that people enjoy, or tell awesome stories and get some reaction. And I got to a point where I was like, look, if I'm really investing my life and my time and energy into content, I want to do it around something I love. And I saw the void around video game and esport content, and just dived right in. It's been about 2 years, and that's what I've been doing.
So you met with Garyvee a while back. I'm an avid fan of his, and I love the content that he produces and the style that he does. So how was that meeting Garyvee, and what did you guys talk about, if you care to share?
Yeah, sure. I'm a fan of Garyvee as well, mainly his work ethic, his story, his relentless pursuit, right, to getting better and figuring things out. I think he's has a humble approach to none of us are going to get it right immediately. And I think it's those that really are aligned with their passions, that have the tact to see it through and to keep fighting. So there's a lot personally what his opinion is on esports, but I think the more kind of that was great, right? It's great to meet Gary, but I think people get distracted by him, and actually I had a really nice time connecting with his team, the people who are actually doing a lot for VaynerMedia, and his brother AJ, and the guys that run his biz dev team and producers. And that was huge for me, just business wise, because Gary, he's doing what Gary does, and there's a whole team behind him that makes shit happen, and that's the key. It's the getting to those people. So that was nice.
Now, you've mentioned a couple times, I've seen online, about the holy grail of esports content. Can you share a little bit what you mean by that?
The holy grail of esports content. I say that?
I vaguely remember seeing that somewhere online. It was like the holy grail of esports content.
Esports narrative podcast, hashtag fake news. Didn't happen.
All right, so I was a little wrong on this statement. So Christian didn't actually say this. What happened was he tweeted out, "Great meeting with the guys at YouTube, super smart and insightful. The esports content challenge continues." And he tweeted that out a while ago. And then his company, GG Media Network, retweeted it and said, "The mission of figuring out the holy grail of esports content led our CEO to YouTube's headquarters in Playa Vista, California." So that's what I was referring to in this tweet. I apologize for not having all the information up front. Let's get back into it. All right.
Never happened.
We'll throw that one out.
Okay, look. So now look, let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about that. The holy grail of esports content. I think that is it. First off, if I knew that, then shit, we'd really be in a good position. I think figuring out esports content, what's authentic, what resonates, what really can keep up with how fickle the attention span is for viewers. And I think figuring that all out to do it in the right way in such a fragmented audience is the key, right? the audience is so fragmented of gamers, whether or not you're in the FGC, scene, if you're in MMOs, if you're into MOBAs, if you're into Battle Royale, if you're into mobile games, and there's so many segments within those of different demographics of viewers, age groups, and in addition to that, location and geographically. So I think finding a way to create content that's laser focused, that's going to resonate with your specific audience, I think is critical. And there's so many ways to skin that cat. And then the second side of it is monetizing it and paying for it, right? Like the gamer audience, I mean, like crushes it with their ad blockers. And so like the SVOD model of content is tough unless you're like a Crunchyroll. So like we could really dig into that. But figuring that out, right, is something that I'm committed to doing, at least to play a part in it.
So what are some of the strategies that some of the media companies are using to kind of break through those barriers of ad blocker and some of those things that typical esports fans are kind of really vehemently against? Like, how do you break through that and begin to monetize more in the media landscape?
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on, right? So these media companies are smart. So obviously there's ways to what you do is you versus the ad content, the B-roll, the 30-second spots being put into the content later, right? It's being put in, it's actually becoming one with the stream. So what you would do is you would take the content, the 7-minute show, and in the 7-minute show you carve out the space in the initial feed, in the initial video, and that way it's not like an ad that's coming through like an AdWord program or like an ad spend. It's a part of the content, so you can't distinguish the ad from the actual content, so there's no way to block it by implanting it in advance, like actual 30-second spots, or even doing like in video integration, right? So like a Red Bull in your actual, your Red Bull in your actual show, for example, or sure, whatever, whoever you're sponsoring. I think that's one way. And then another really cool way, which is coming, is smart ad incorporation for consumers that's going to allow them to dictate how they are marketed to. And what I mean by that is based off of your behavior, your buying behavior, your search behavior, your browsing behavior, and your interests, right? Like, what do you like? It's kind of like those smart ads. Like, if you like Google lawnmower, all of a sudden you start seeing lawnmower banner ads all over your social and shit, like that kind of stuff. But imagine that getting on your TV, and then when a commercial spot comes up, instead of it just being random commercials for Fox, it's commercials specifically tailored to you and every individual viewer. In addition to smart ads, I think you'll see it incorporated with hardware on your TV that will, the ads will be based on proximity to your TV, where you'll have an app downloaded to your phone that will tell the TV how close you are to it, and it'll give it the data based on your mobile, information around browsing history, what you search, and your interests. Tell the TV how to market it to you or what classification of ad. So I think you'll start seeing smarter ads, which will be more laser focused and hopefully a better experience for the viewers.
Do you think that's going to kind of preclude the major like cable television networks from, not producing but distributing this type of content if they don't have that technology, if it's built into like Twitch or YouTube or whatever comes next? Do you think it kind of precludes like the ABC, NBC, CBS? And do you see the content moving to other platforms?
I think with millennials and gamers, like, we're naturally cord cutters. So I think you start seeing us get away from the traditional linear, media platforms, right, around content anyway, as it is. And it makes it harder for them to market. It makes the millennial audience, unless you're ESPN, which is like traditional, like gods that target millennials and like men of that, like that core demographic, usually it's go to ESPN. But I think they have to evolve and get better, right? And I think when you think of like Disney, like they just announced that they're going to be getting an OTT streaming platform, and they're pulling all their content from Netflix. Like, they see the writing on the wall. Yes, it's going to be tougher, but also, I think the other flip side of it is the people with the dollars and the ad spends are used to a certain model, and that's TV. They're used to saying, we're going to put $100 million into TV, and because it's what they know. It's how they can justify the spend based on a CPM and a return. It's less risky for them. You're not going to lose your job from doing what's always been done. but being a pioneer and being new and incorporating major pieces of your budget to new media, which they do, like 10, 20%, sometimes more based on the brand or the company. But I think it's slowly changing and progressing.
So when it comes to smaller content creators, right? Like, so there's big companies, they produce the content, the tournaments, the major events and things like that. Then you have the smaller content producers, right? That are just as important to the scene and the community. So what platforms should they be focusing on, or should they be creating content for and bringing attention to?
Sure, yeah, I'm very bullish about going where your audience is based on your content and communicating an authentic voice for that specific platform. The way you communicate on Twitter should be different than the way you communicate on Twitch, via Facebook, Instagram. They're all different platforms, different mechanisms and audiences. And like Garyvee is very big on that as well, in communicating a certain voice. I think each content creator should tailor the medium or the platform for their content around their audience and their style, and to highlight themselves, right? So like if you're a better writer, then maybe you're doing stuff more on like LinkedIn articles or Medium or something like that. If you're a voice guy, then you're doing a podcast. Hey, or like like Alexa's show. If you're more of a video charismatic like person who wants to be in front of camera, then you're doing some more video work. So I think it would be dependent and on your specific audience, but I think you integrate them all in a way, and you use each audience or each platform to communicate the various pieces of what you're trying to do. I think the core for a young content creator is to diversify and spread yourself out, right? Like have a solid Twitter strategy, have a solid Instagram, page, have a solid Facebook set up, even be active on Reddit, right? Be a part of the conversation on Reddit, which I think is a huge audience in our industry of esports and gaming, and use these different channels to communicate different ways. And it's a shit ton of work, right? But it's what,
Of course.
you just got to do it if you really want to do it.
Yeah, that's right. And how do you feel about Twitch versus like YouTube stream or YouTube gaming versus Facebook even? There's obviously a lot of attention on Twitch, but that also means that it's harder to get noticed. And likewise, almost to the same extent with Google, although it's less popular, and then Facebook. I've seen some people streaming, their gameplay on Facebook. It's interesting to me. I'm curious how you feel like between the three of like where someone can maybe break through the noise to get a little bit more attention or exposure.
Yeah, I think you focus on being worthy, right? You focus on being worthy, and you focus on consistency of creating content, right? So if you have to eat shit for 6 months to a year and just create content, and you have like a marginal growth of viewership, like it starts with like just you and your mom, like your mom watching your stream, and then it grows to like your 3 friends, your core friends, and then it gets to like the double digits, you hit 10, then you hit 100. But like a consistent grassroots grounded approach, like from a very create content. And I think it's super important to be aligned with your passion, that you're not doing it for the viewers, you're not doing it for the numbers, you're doing it because you want to, and you're refining your craft to be worthy, to that it's your content's actually good. Like, what is it good? And if it's good and you're consistent and you're putting your work in, and you're grinding and you're collaborating with other influencers, and you're retweeting and you're sharing, you're getting shares, and you're in Facebook groups for your, if you're a show about lawnmowers, you should be in every lawnmower Facebook group, and you should be in every lawnmower Reddit feed, and you should be sharing your information in a relevant way to that conversation. Where if it's lawnmowers are talking about the brand new, blades to use in the lawnmower, then your content should be about the blades, and then you post it in a relevant way that makes sense. And I think you do that work, and you focus on getting good at what you do and slowly building an audience. And don't worry so much about the platform. Spread it out to all of them, and focus on audience. Focus on building audience and notoriety and brand for yourself. And I think with that will produce opportunities where, like, I know like Ryan Wyatt and the guys at YouTube Gaming, they don't want to do exclusivity deals with people who don't have the true numbers and the audience. And it actually can be a negative to your brand to get an exclusive deal on, like back in the day with Machinima Verizon Go 90 app, where it's like you're doing, yeah, okay, they paid you some money, but now your content's dying because it's on Go90's app that people don't want to watch it. So like sometimes getting an exclusive deal sets you up potentially for failure. So I think it's diversify yourself, put yourself out there at different mediums and platforms, build audience, and then when it makes sense, you make the right pivot and move.
So why do you think now has the rise of esports become ballooning and the last several years? What do you think's contributed most to this rise and this explosive growth?
Well, I think it obviously starts with technology. So like infrastructure, whether or not it's the transition from dial up to copper to coax to fiber. I think the infrastructure is there to support bandwidth, high speed, majority of populations, as well as Asia, Europe, right, where they're like the mother of esports in a sense of content. I think that has become big. Technology wise, I think the games, the developers have been solid in investing in creating esports. I think like League of Legends, like LCS and stuff, is a big marketing spin for Riot. It was like a marketing play, and that's where like a lot of esports came from. It comes from a marketing angle to drive sales and to accomplish things. And then there's some communities like Super Smash that's like super grassroots. That's like, we're just not going to die. Like, even though you're not going to support us, Nintendo, we're going to be here with our GameCubes and our shitty like projection TVs in a hotel lobby because we want to. And then there's communities like that. But I think the progression of technology, the publishers making the focus, and then it eventually has led to Wall Street's attention, which has brought in Wall Street dollars, financial institutions, and that has culminated into more people coming in trying to figure it out.
What do you think esports media companies and content creators need to do to continue to grow and be successful at this esports thing?
Yeah, man. That's a really good question, right? I think that pulls back to kind of one of your first questions you asked before, Spence, was like around what's like the right content and like figuring it out. I think in order to be successful, you got to find a way to make solid content that resonates with your audience, stay lean, right? So you can continue to operate and continue to be in the space and figure out your core audience and whether or not you're like Patreon funded or you find some other way to bring in some funds with base sponsors. But I think it's important to add value. Add value to whoever you're working with, whether or not it's your viewer or your brand sponsor. And I think that's super important, is to focus on value and to make sure that you don't get too caught up with the esport allure of billions of viewers all around the world and billions of dollars. And it's like, chill. Okay. Like that's like a handful of esports teams are actually profitable, right? Everybody else is like super VC funded and like this balloon is like blowing up. But I think it's like focus on value, them staying lean and not over promising so we don't set ourselves up to under deliver.
So what were the highlights for you 2017, like highlights for you, for your company, for what you're doing, and what are some of your goals for 2018 and beyond of what you're looking forward to?
Cool. I think, yeah, last question for me, and I got to run, but I think some of the exciting things of 2017 is continuing to be in the industry, to be in the space, to collaborate with so many great companies, to actually be in it and be in these board meetings and these executives meetings and actually having an opportunity to understand what's happening on the business level of video games and esports and participating at the conferences, the conventions, the pitch meetings, closing deals. I think it's just being in this space has been a consistent highlight for me, just to be able to be here and have conversations like this about something I extremely love and I'm very passionate about. For 2018, I'm excited to continue to progress on that. And it drives me crazy just thinking about where I was at the beginning of the year and where I am now, and to think that I'm going to be able to have exponential growth from all of my hard work and fruits of the labors for all these years in this particular year into 2018. And not only am I going to benefit from my own efforts and hard work, but we all benefit from the rise of the tide of esports with the Overwatch League, the preseason just rolling into regular season, with the LCS and everything going on with the franchising of Riot and H1Z1 League with Twin Galaxies coming up and other leagues and online platforms popping up, and this money coming in is going to raise the tide, right? So all boats should rise. And I think that's exciting too. And I'm not relying on that, but I just think it's exciting to think of the opportunity to plant your flag in this industry and hold firm, be here and continue to work hard, get better every day, and learn and do good business and build solid relationships.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. I love the excitement and enthusiasm and the passion and the drive. And I as well am excited to see what you're up to and what you're creating. I think it's super cool what you're up to. That's why I wanted to just pick your brain and chat. And I appreciate you coming on the podcast tonight and talking to us for a little bit. And wish you continued success. And really appreciate you taking some time tonight.
Always a pleasure, Spence. Keep it up, man. Thanks again for having me.
And with that, I just want to remind everyone that if this all goes as planned, this show is just the beginning. Hey guys, real quick before you go, I just want to say thanks for listening and supporting the show. It really means a lot to me that you like it, and I hope that if you found some value from this podcast, that you'll share it on Twitter or on Instagram or Facebook, anywhere that you have a social media presence. I would love it if you would just share it with 3 to 4 people that might be interested in it. It would absolutely mean the world to me. It would help me get my name out there, help me get the podcast out there. I do this solely for the love of esports and for the love of getting to know people and hearing the stories of esports that I think are so awesome. So please, if you got value from this, if you enjoyed it, please share it with someone who you think might like it. And with that, I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it.